my fellow Dream Chasers and Disney fans across the world, and welcome to the latest episode of the King of Isolation, where in times of trouble, why not isolate yourself through the magic of Disney? And today, we're going through a very underrated gem. We are going through the first theatrically released animated sequel from Disney, The Rescuers Down Under, the sequel to the original film in 1977. This film, Down Under, was released in 1990, the second film as part of the Disney Renaissance period. But of course, it wouldn't be The Kingdom of Isolation without having a guest on board for this series. It's the second part of his back-to-back appearance, because he helped me kick off the Renaissance period with The Little Mermaid, which you can find in the top right of your screens in the dedicated Kingdom of Isolation playlist. He also covered Robin Hood with me a while back. It's Jack McDonald. Jack, welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
You've said to me on a number of occasions you've been really looking forward to covering this film with me.
Yeah, this was one of the films that I watched a ton as a kid and kind of never really went and revisited until very recently, and it was a very strange film to go back to, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, because I'm more or less on the same boat. Growing up, I actually watched Down Under more than I did the original.
I did the same, actually, funnily enough. Down Under was the one that I think I always came back to, and I'm sure I did watch the original at numerous occasions, but Down Under is the one that I've always remembered revisiting when I was a kid.
Yeah, I will say this, folks. One of the things I'll go into a bit more detail regarding it in the legacy section of the scores. This was actually released on the same day as Home Alone, which was released by 20th Century Fox, which Disney now officially own. But nevertheless, we'll get into all of that in the legacy portion of the scores. So let's not waste any more time. Let's head down under with The Rescuers Down Under, and spoiler alert in place if you guys haven't seen the film yet. As is part of the course, always have to put that spoiler alert in place. So opening scene. We get introduced to the Australian outback, and then just that shot of just the camera just zooming in at quite a pace towards the house where the protagonist is residing for this part of the film. The score at this point, I mean, this right out the gate is, for a lot of people, what the first film should have been right out the gate. And you've got Bruce Brockton, who did the music for this film. He would go on to do Disney projects in the future. He would, of course, be very instrumental in composing the score for the two Homeward Bound films, Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey and Homeward Bound 2: Lost in San Francisco, both of which I have seen, and I will get to the live action films eventually. But once I've got the Tarzan episode up, it will be on to the Pixar films, and Jack is going to be my first guest in the Pixar run of The Kingdom of Isolation, covering Toy Story. He's actually going to be covering all the Toy Story films with me as well. So Toy Story films are already covered on that front. We get introduced. Regarding Bruce, he actually turned down an offer to compose the music for Home Alone, interestingly. And then, of course, we all know it would be the one, the only John Williams that would compose the music for that film. We get introduced to Cody, who for some reason is American, not Australian. Anyway, so we've got Adam Ryan as the voice actor, Russ Edmonds, the supervising animator, and Cody's name is actually it comes from an Irish word that means helper or guardian. He was meant to be an Aborigine character until Jeffrey Katzenberg insisted that he be Americanized to be more commercial. Yeah, not the first time Jeffrey has tried to pull a trick like this, and it probably won't be the last. Yeah, but yeah, and then Cody's mother is only got like a couple of lines throughout the entire film. Just double checking if Cody's got everything he needs, and tells him just make sure you're home, make sure you're back home for supper. And I say Cody's mother is voiced by Carla Mayer, and she also voices the kangaroo who blows through that wooden horn or whatever it is, which was actually done, of course, with traditional Aborigine instrument, the didgeridoo, which is actually quite difficult to play, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, folks, I believe it's something along the lines of like breathing in and out through your nose, breathing in and out through your nose and your mouth at the same time, like one you breathe in through and one you blow out through. But it is ridiculously hard to pull off. I mean, even I've actually tried. I was like, not with a didgeridoo, but I've tried like breathing in through my nose and breathing out through my mouth at the same time. It is not easy, folks. It is not easy. So massive props to whoever managed to pull off doing the didgeridoo. Female kangaroo here is Falou. Cody's mother is actually named Sheila, but the name is never actually mentioned in the film, interestingly. So Carla voiced both Cody's mother and Falou. But anyway, Cody gets told about a golden eagle that's trapped at the top of a cliff, and the eagle's name is Marahute. And when we're actually climbing up that cliff with Cody, and some of the camera shots as well, I mean, you can actually see, yeah, this is quite a long way up, and that's quite a long way down.
They built scale really well with how they just painted the backgrounds. It actually was quite intimidating watching it. I mean, if you imagine, he's also a really young kid, so that's quite the height to be fallen from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One thing I would say as well about the kind of opening scene, especially with that part, is to see the sound design with all the animals as well. Not just the didgeridoo. It was really quite impressive, especially for the time. Yeah. It really it built up the Australian outback amazingly, and then even as you're getting up to like the climb and then to the eagle as well, everything, all the sound design, that's the early stages of the film really was quite. I didn't expect it to be so high. I suppose high tech would be the way. Like they must have obviously travelled down and got recorded proper sounds, but it was just really. I didn't expect it. I thought it would all be kind of not stock sounds, but not as highly detailed as what they had.
Yeah. Yes, and of course this is like 30 years ago when the computer technology wasn't as advanced as it is today.
Yep.
And then we reach the top, and then the size of Marahute compared to Cody, just you can just see right out. You can just see from introduction that this is quite a size difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I say Marahute ends up waking up, but Cody trying to reassure her that everything's going to be okay. But ends up getting a switchblade out, which ends up causing a little bit of what's what I'm looking for? What was that?
The bird was quite scared. The eagle was very intimidated by the little boy. Obviously, she's dealt with humans before, as we find out.
Yeah, but That's it. Yeah, quite intimidated by the Switchblade, but Cody again continuing to try and reassure Marahute, trying to free her, and you just hear Marahute just screeching throughout this whole sequence, and then once he, and it, as I, all it takes is him cutting a couple of ropes, and then he manages to find the one that he needs to cut to free Marahute, and you just need to make sure you don't celebrate too early, Cody. Otherwise, he gets knocked off, and then just all the ropes break, and then it's more the build up of the fall, if anything, because the music's building with the fall at this point as well, and this is quite a tense moment.
There's a really subtle thing as well, is when he starts to fall, only for a few frames, you actually see him crying as he's falling.
Yeah,
it is only for maybe a second, but that one little tear really quite hit me. Actually, I was like, oh God.
Yeah. So I mean, we'd probably be in the same position. We'd probably be doing the exact same thing if we were in Cody's position. But he's still falling, but Marahute manages to swoop under him and manages to catch him, and the music just continues swelling at this point. And then you just see the shot of Falu just like, whoa! And then just the music throughout this next part is just absolutely incredible. Now, those who know me well know how much I love my film scores, and this is another one I can add to that list, because that whole sequence where they're just flying through the sky, Disney were actually inspired by the films of Hayao Miyazaki, who was just starting making films for Studio Ghibli, like films like Castle in the Sky, My Neighbor Totoro, what other films were out at the time? Grave of the Fireflies. What other Studio Ghibli films were out at the time? The following year, Kiki's Delivery Service would be made as well, and then in 1992, Porco Rosso as well. And I've actually got the Studio Ghibli filmography on my laptop, ready to watch at any time. But of course, apart from Grave of the Fireflies, the films are all available on Netflix as well. So yeah, you'll see there was a lot of inspiration from Miyazaki's films throughout this whole sequence. And I will say probably my favourite moment of that entire sequence is when he's at the end, just skimming across the water, and what a moment! Just again, the music swelling, and then you hit that huge moment of triumph where I think he's just skimming the water. I think towards the end of it, you've reached the end of the waterfall. He's not actually got Marahute helping from behind at this point. I think he almost loses his balance at one point, but Marahute manages to help him stay on his feet, and then Cody just gains the confidence. He just that shot of him just like arms out wide as if he's flying as well. Just wow. I mean, just that
the music as well that combines with the visually seeing. It is just a stunning shot.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was like, it is without a doubt one of the best moments of the entire film, because like I said, this is what, I mean, the first 5-10 minutes of The Rescuers is just them, like the Rescue Aid Society song. It's not one of my favorites. But here, the first 5-10 minutes of the film, like I said, this is for many people what the first film should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But then they get. Then
I'm
it gets
sorry, I do agree with you with that shot. Like, it really shows you the potential what the first film was trying to go for,
yeah,
and then you see it kind of almost come to fruition in this film. Which, in fairness, is what you want from a sequel. That's what you. I would argue this is a very successful sequel for that as well.
yeah,
Is it did all the things the first one maybe was trying to avoid have done, and then just absolutely blows them away.
yeah. It is absolutely phenomenal that just that shot. But yeah, the but then we see Maruhute's nest, and it turns out she's actually got eggs there that are waiting to be hatched. And just you actually hear the theme of the film throughout the entirety of, if not a majority of the score. And I see there's like different variations on that theme throughout the score in the same way for one of my favorite games of all time, Ori and the Blind Forest. I mean, just like the different variations on the theme for like the different areas of that game are just absolutely incredible. And I was like, I love I love the Ori games, and I've actually got playthroughs of those games on my channel as well, including a review that I actually put up May 22nd last year, as sort of like part of a tradition I've got on my channel now to upload a video, regardless of what it is, on my channel for that day. Because for those that may not be in the loop regarding that particular day, I was actually unfortunate enough to be at the Manchester Arena for that Ariana Grande concert that night, and I'm still feeling the effects of that night mentally, even over 4 years later. So I decided that I was going to upload a video on that day every day on my channel. And the video that I did last year was my review of Ori and the Will of the Wisps. And the amount of time I put into that review, just putting it all together, not just the recording side of things, because the recording, that's easy enough. It was when I was editing it, getting the gameplay, the music, and then just working out how to get it all edited together. It was just, I had a lot of positive feedback regarding that review, and it made all the work worth it over the course of the couple of weeks that I spent putting it all together. But yeah, Cody asks where the daddy eagle is, and then of course Marahute, being an animal, she doesn't really say anything, but just her expressions just pretty much sum it up, really. That yeah. And then Cody says, "My dad's gone too." This is sort of like a traditional thing for Disney. They have either one of the parents, they either have one of the parents gone or both of them. Sometimes having them, sometimes actually killing them, and on the very rare occasion, killing them on screen. Looking at you, Lion King. Don't worry, I'll get to that in a couple of episodes. Don't you worry about that. But there is the very rare occasion where you actually have both parents alive, such as Sleeping Beauty and Mulan, for instance. And alive throughout the entire film.
What I will say is that scene when they both are like, "Oh, I've lost my dad too." It was quite a touching scene, and it kind of gave the two of them kind of something that they have in common.
That emotional connection, yeah.
Yeah, and it built up almost like a bit of trust in each other, and how much Cody actually cares for her, especially with the eggs as well. And as you see kind of later on in the film as well, you see that kind of bond coming to fruition. And it is quite sweet, but it's also quite sad when you really think about it. And it's really quite dark as well, because the fact that they both like you kind of figure out what happens to the dad Bob, and it's quite, I would argue, brutal. What, like,
Yeah, because we do actually find out what happened very shortly.
yeah. So it's quite emotional, especially once you find out what actually happened. It does hit you. It's quite hard actually.
Yeah, but so yeah, so they part ways for the time being, and Cody just being his playful self, he's just imitating a plane, and then and then we see this poster for McLeach. Um, so we've got like a small minor character here. We've got the bait. He's actually called Bait Mouse according to IMDb, voiced by Billy Barty. Now, I was like, Cody, being the helpful person that he is, he's going to get the. He's getting the bait mouse untied, and then
I'll get you loose.
falls into the trap, and this ends up alerting. McLeach. So yeah, the bait mouse does try to help, but to no avail because the vine he tries to use ends up being cut by the vehicle that McLeach is in, and Cody ends up.
The bait mouse has one of my favourite lines in the film at this point, where he just goes, "You okay? Okay," and then just runs off screen. And at that point, we don't realise he's going to get a vine.
Yeah.
But when I forgot that's what happened. So when he just went okay and ran away, I genuinely was gutting myself. I couldn't believe, like, it just because I forgot how abrupt it was. I genuinely didn't see it coming, and then obviously he comes back with a vine to help. But it did make me laugh quite a lot, that bit.
Yeah, and then we actually see McLeach and his sidekick Joanna on screen for. So yeah, Joanna voiced by Frank Welker, and Frank Welker also did the voice of Marahute. Frank Welker was known for doing the animal vocal effects for Disney films at the time. He would end up being Abu in Aladdin a couple of years later. He would also be involved in Beauty and the Beast, and he was also part of the English dubs for a lot of the Studio Ghibli films that I mentioned earlier. So he's got a very impressive resume. So he's got a very impressive resume to his name. Joanna's supervising animator is David Cutler, and George C. Scott is the voice actor for McLeach. And despite the fact that George is playing a poacher in the form of McLeach, George is actually an animal lover, believe it or not. So definitely very polar opposite compared to what we were seeing on the screen.
I have to also admit that I think McLeach is a lot more of an evil villain than some of like the usual Disney villains, especially for some things you see later on in the film. But I think because it's a Disney film, people don't really realise. But this is a grown man, and obviously Cody is a kid. But for him to get what he wants, he doesn't care who he has to hurt or who has to go through. So I think that on the scale of evil, he hits pretty evil.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. He is really abusive towards Joanna throughout the film as well, be it verbally or in some cases physically. Like he just kicks him to say, "You've been digging holes again."
Yeah, that's true. He tries to blame the trap on Joanna digging holes.
Yeah.
I don't know how big a hole Joanna wants to dig, but my goodness.
Yeah, it is just. It's a very it's a very abusive relationship between Joanna and McLeach, but he actually helps Cody out of the out of that trap, which is and even Cody is just like, yeah, there is something suspicious about this guy.
I have a bone to pick with this scene. Just one very small detail.
Okay.
So as obviously when he kind of tries to let Cody go, he sees the feather on his back.
Yeah.
Which is obviously how it all sets off. Now he asked Cody, where did you find that feather? Now all Cody had to say was, I found it on the ground. Then the whole film would not have happened. But no, he had to say it was a gift.
Not the first time I've heard or seen that sort of thing pop up on social media.
Because even as a kid, he knows this person's dangerous, so why tell him the truth? Oh, my camera's gone. Hold on. And I'm back. And I'm back.
There we go.
That was a frustration push on my enter key because I just don't understand the thought process. The ego is a pretty big word, as we've established. So it's not even that hard to believe that his feathers have fallen off throughout the forest.
Yeah, but I was like, yeah, he actually says that it's a present. McLeach wonders where he who gave it to him. Cody says it's a secret, and then turns out it's not a secret because McLeach, I already got the father, and then just feather across the neck as if he's implying what he actually did.
Mm-hmm.
And
then,
if
that is the way it happened, that is extremely brutal.
Yeah, and oh boy, he then asks where Mama and those little eggs are, and Cody's just like, nope, and just legs it, and rather than going after him himself, he decides to let Joanna go after him, and probably not the smartest thing to be doing when you've got a shotgun in your hands, McLeach. You have a shotgun right there. Why do you not use it? For somebody as evil as McLeach, he's not very smart, but you do tend to find that with most Disney villains.
Yeah, no, you're right. Especially he is one of those villains that does a lot of silly things and gets himself into more trouble than he needs. If he would just, especially with Joanna. Joanna never gets the job done, usually. So why does he keep asking her to do all the important jobs?
Yeah, it's Cody tries to get his switchblade out, ends up dropping it. He goes to pick it up, but nope. McLeach's foot on him. You're coming with me. And then Cody brings up the Rangers, and almost in a mocking fashion.
Mm-hmm.
McLeach is just like, no, what am I going to do? I'm going to get caught by the Rangers. And throws Cody's rucksack into
What'll I do? Don't let your ma call the Rangers, please.
Into the ocean of the crocodiles.
My poor baby boy.
I think it needs to be stated that Cody is a child. He's not a teenager. He's not, even though in the film he is quite mature, he is just a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
And for someone, that's why I would argue he's one of the more evil villains, because he's willing to go that far for just to scare a kid.
Yeah,
to do
exactly. But anyway, then we have the and then the bait mouse goes to another mouse, wherever it is, and tells them about the fact that Cody's been kidnapped, and then we get this sequence of just the SOS, the distress signal being sent to places like the Mauritius Islands, Hawaiian Islands, and in the Hawaiian Islands, actually, especially there is actually an old Apple keyboard in that scene in the Hawaiian Islands, and then it all climaxes places like Denver, Los Angeles. I think Washington's one of them, and then it reaches where the Rescue Aid Society is based in New York, and it ends up being it's an emergency meeting. It's an emergency meeting, and they managed to get it to the Rescue Aid Society. You've got Bernard Fox back doing his role of the chairman of the Rescue Aid Society. And he's in sort of like a comedic fashion. He says, "We're all thinking of the same two mice that are going to be more than willing to take this job, but yeah, turns out they're not actually there. They're actually in a restaurant having dinner together."
I must say, I love the fact that every other mouse got the memo to be at this meeting, get later. And that's the other thing about this film, I think, that needs to be said, is the amount of different accents and countries represented in this film is insane.
Yeah.
Because most of the characters, I would argue, have a different kind of accent and all these different things, and then even when you go into the Mouse Society, you see all the Rescue Society, you see all the different, like, all the mice dressed up from different nations. It's actually quite an interesting scene.
Yeah, and they did actually put a fair amount of attention to detail in the first film, but yeah, bear with me, folks. Because the waiter Francois is Ed Gilbert. That's the actor for the film. And then you've got Bob Newhart and Eva Gabor reprising their roles as Bernard and Bianca, respectively. Mark Henn being the supervising animator for both of those characters. And this was actually Gabor's last. This was her last film role before she passed away. And there were actually plans for a third film to come out, but again, we'll go into that. We'll go into a bit more detail regarding that in the legacy section of the scores. I can't really call it. I can't really call it too big of a running gag per se, but it is one that is somewhat persistent throughout the film. That Bernard is trying to propose to Bianca, and it's. I mean, to me, I can't really class it as a running gag, given the fact it's only used like twice throughout the entire film.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that comes down to one of my strangest things we revisit the film is that the duo of mice don't actually get a lot of screen time, as you would imagine from a film with them as the kind of poster characters. So they do it a couple of times, but I think I'm kind of glad that they don't do it too many times, because I think it would then become quite more annoying to watch rather than like, oh, tried again but failed. But it does happen a few times. I think, yeah, it happens at one point when they're in Australia, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would still call it a running gag, but it's not one that's leaned on too heavily.
Yeah, there is that. Francois ends up getting the memo to Bianca, which Bernard is completely oblivious to because he's trying to get the engagement ring. he and I'll say Bernard prior to Bernard prior to actually finding out what exactly is going on. He's just like he's oblivious to the fact that Bianca is wanting to get ready for this mission to Australia, but he thinks it's all regarding getting wedding preparations underway. Oh dear! But some of the things that some of the things that Bianca comes out with, they need to get ready tonight, but I was wait, hang on. As like I say, this is him in like engagement wedding mindset. Like you want to get this ceremony done tonight. We've got like measurements, this. But then Bianca's like, no. We need things like hiking boots, and Bernard's like, wait, hiking boots? What?
Like I'll just wear my jacket. It's fine.
Yeah, but Bianca does say that she and Bernard will be accepting the mission to Australia, and it's just the look on Bernard's face, like, wait, Australia? What? Which actually begs the question: why don't the other mice in the Retrograde Society have the opportunity to go on these missions?
Yeah, I think because this one is considered so dangerous. I mean, it's like child kidnapping. In fairness, they probably just want the top mice to go on it. There probably is missions that other mice will go on, but the more dangerous ones, I'm pretty sure are reserved for they too because they are the top of the top.
That is a valid point, especially with the fact that they dealt with something similar in the first film.
It has high stakes, and I think they would want their best, especially when it comes, like you say, to kids being kidnapped. Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty high stake to have.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, so they get to where Albatross is, and it's a blizzard storm effectively, which is a very big contrast compared to what we've been seeing in Australia, because.
I'm sorry. The one thing I would like to mention is you see the effect they use for the snow. They use the same effect for the desert, the sandstorm in the desert, but they just change the colour of it to match so it's white for the snow, then they turn it into the kind of beige, kind of browns for the sandstorm.
That is really very clever.
For them to save money as well from making two different effects, they just change the colour. Which is, that's
very clever from Disney's part. Well done to them for that.
Yeah, it works really well. It doesn't look silly. And it does, because of how almost subtle the effect is, it makes the screen actually feel more 3D than it is.
So it does.
Because it's a layer on top of a layer. So it's really, really well done.
Yeah. And this actually ties into the program that they used, program or software that Disney used for this film. It's the CAPS system, which is an acronym for the Computer Animated System process, which allows them to digitally add color to the scenes, and it is in the Guinness World Records, folks, that this film is the first fully digital animated film.
Because when we talked about Robin Hood, we also did mention the effects, but they were a lot more chunky, is the only way I can really describe it. Like they weren't as finer to the detail, whereas in this film, the detail in the storms it's really quite subtle, but really it adds to the whole film, and it doesn't feel like it shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the fact that the CAP system was in play in full for the first time here, that may help influence the visuals score when we get to the visuals portion of the scores. But anyway, so they so they're gonna be going for they're initially gonna be going for Orville, who was the albatross in the first film, but unfortunately the actor that played Orville in the first film, Jim Jordan, actually passed away a couple of years before this film was released. So, being the fact that Orville was one of the Wright brothers, they thought, let's use Wilbur instead. So, yeah, that is very well played on the Disney team's front. Under new management, see Wilbur, and yeah, the person that they got to do Wilbur is, of course, the late John Candy. Now, John has done, he did do one or two other Disney projects after this. He was, of course, the coach of the greatest bobsled team of all time from Jamaica in Cool Runnings in 1993. He was also in Spaceballs, Splash. He was in Uncle Buck alongside Macaulay Culkin. There would also be Macaulay and John would also be in Home Alone the following year. He was in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. He was in JFK, which was directed by Oliver Stone. He was in a TV movie of Sesame Street. He was even in Little Shop of Horrors, the film version of Little Shop of Horrors with Rick Moranis in it. Feed me, Seymour! So a very extensive resume for John Candy, despite the fact that he did pass away at a very young age of just 43. So, but this is right. Where do we even begin with the exchanges that that Wilbur has with Bernard and Bianca? There is one. There is one small criticism with regards to Wilbur. A lot of the comedy from Wilbur does feel a bit forced. That they're just trying to chuck in as many comedic moments with Wilbur as possible.
I'm glad you brought that up, because when I was watching the film, that was actually one of the things I had maybe took more note of, is they tried to make a comedy relief character, but a lot of the jokes, excuse the kind of pun, didn't land. They just didn't. A lot of them were just very, almost childish, I suppose is the best way to put it. And I mean, I can imagine as a kid, I would have loved it, but being an adult and rewatching it, they are very silly jokes. And I would argue there's too many of them, I think, is the issue I have.
Yeah. And well, not just that, the fact that there was so many in such a short time span in that scene as well didn't exactly help matters either.
Yeah, they tried to, it was almost like a camera on its like bus creature that was just like one after the other, like so quickly. You didn't really get a break to laugh, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But then, Bernard and Bianca, they finally, emphasis on finally, managed to get their body across. Like, look, we just need to get to Australia. And he's just like, why didn't you say so? They've been trying to tell you for the last few minutes.
Yep.
So I mean, yes. Yes, a lot of the films that I've covered are great. But the thing is, films like this do have their flaws.
I think it's very important. As much as Disney has nostalgia, they're not blind to the issues that some of these films do have. And just because the films do have issues doesn't mean they're not good films. I think that needs to be emphasized.
Yeah.
Like, even though this film has its flaws, I would still say I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then Wilbur is just like, when do you want to get it booked? Like this, and then maybe June, when Australia is going to be in the middle of winter, which is probably about like 6 months down the line. And then Bianca's like, wait, need to get there tonight. And Wilbur's like, wait, what? Tonight? Have you seen the weather outside? And then going into a bit more detail, and they do manage to convince him to get them to they do manage to convince him to take them to Australia, and I wish I was joking when I say this, and I have actually put it like this in my notes as well. Like, did we seriously just get a John Candy Cowabunga? that is legitimately what one of my friends said when I was watching it at his place before I got my flat. Because you just hear that, Cowabunga! His exact response, did I just hear a John Candy Cowabunga? To which I could only respond, I'm afraid we just did.
There's also at that point in the film that we did get one of the genuinely funny jokes on Wilbur's part. It's like Bianca says to him,
non-stop flight to Australia, yeah.
Non-stop flight, and he's like, maybe not, but we'll see. Just like,
yeah.
Oh, that did get a chuckle out of me.
Yeah, might need to connect with we might need to connect with a couple of bigger birds.
I thought that was a really smart. But see, the good thing about that joke as well is it was a really smart, like, flying joke.
Yeah, because as we know, planes are significantly bigger than albatrosses.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got bear with me. Cody's just like making a lot of racket, and then McLeach's just telling him quiet, or the Rangers might hear you, because they're actually heading to McLeach's hideout, and you hear Cody's mum calling for him, unaware of what has just happened. And then that bigger plane thing, yeah, it is literally a jumbo jet, which I can only assume is probably their equivalent of Qantas Airways, which is the national airline for Australia. And it's just like 5 more minutes before they wake up, and they're just like, okay, right, fine, I'm awake. And then you see the doors to the landing gear open up, and Bert is just like, here we go again. First the Cowabunga, first the John Candy Cowabunga, now we get a John Candy Cannonball! As if he's going to be cannonballing into the water.
We must talk about how beautiful this scene is where they enter Australia and how I'm imagining it's all hand painted, and it genuinely is a stunning shot.
Yeah,
especially when they first approach.
Yeah, heading towards the Sydney Opera House. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it goes to show how even though this film is older and they did use hand-drawn assets, they can almost look better than just some shots of Australia that's been digitized.
Oh yeah, yes, some of the background shots, like the one that I'm using right now. It's like just massive praise to the animation team for getting all that done, and Bernard taking a joke from the last film. Next time we're next time we should definitely try and take the train. Which begs the question, how exactly are they going to get a train from New York, which is in a completely different country, in a completely different continent, to Australia? How exactly is that going to work, Bernard?
Yeah, but he's trying at least. Got to give him a try.
Yeah, but of course, I'm just sitting here like because where about with it yeah, and also with the sort of like descending Kishada, that's twice they've used effectively the discount Hawaii 5-0 theme.
Yep.
Yeah, it's and then we get introduced to Jake, who is actually the Australian agent for the Rescue Aid Society, voiced by Tristan Rogers, who is the only Australian actor in the film, and is also the only. He's the only Australian actor in the film, and he actually portrays an Australian. So there's that. Ruben A. Aquino as the supervising animator for this character. He's playing checkers or drafts, whichever way you want to put it, with a fly. And the way it's just eliminating all the pieces, and he's just like. He just says, "Wise fly." That wouldn't work because you need to get to the other side of the board to be able to crown that piece. Because it was just the one draft piece, rather than two stacked on top of each other. Because if you've got two stacked on top of each other, that's when you can move anywhere on the board. So effectively, the fly cheated to win the game.
I like to imagine that the fly was watching humans play it and just not understood the rules and just found to say what a wee bit and decided to drop it.
Well, there is that, yeah. And then another joke that they've recycled from the first film, because Wilbur calls in as Albatross Air Flight 13. Flight 13. You couldn't let Bernard's superstitions... You couldn't leave Bernard's superstitions alone, could you, Disney? You couldn't leave those superstitions alone.
You couldn't leave well enough alone.
And what's the bets they took off on a Friday as well?
We can hope.
They just could not leave his superstitions alone. Yeah, and Jake, he is incredibly resourceful throughout this film, because he actually has this like huge chart that's like Albatross,
Kookaburra parrot, cockatoo,
Albatross, wait, it has a jumbo. It's like he's trying to convince Wilbur to say, like, right, this runway isn't exactly long enough to let you land, so we're gonna need to get you to land somewhere else. And Wilbur just being persistent to the point where he's just like, screw this, I'm coming in to land anyway. And Jake's response, he's a Yank. and then just quick into action. We need to find a way to extend the runway, and they managed to do that with things like coat hangers, a spinning parasol umbrella thing that you put over the top of garden tables, and they even use women's underwear as a drag line.
That did get a slight chuckle out of me, I must admit.
Yeah.
It was so stupid. That's what made me laugh.
Yeah. And the reason I say women's underwear specifically. I mean, if you've watched the film, you'll know specifically which part it is that's used. But yeah, let's just say this is. I guess you could call it a more subtle innuendo because kids films are notorious for having innuendos in there for the adults. But yeah, regarding that drag line, don't tell me the runway's too short. And it's just like he actually tries to get Jay to hold it, and then just boom, whee! Oh dear, but Jake is just like, right, just why do these sort of people exist? And then lo and behold, his attention is drawn away. His attention is drawn to Bianca, and the fly is just like, ugh, really. But Jake trying to be as gentlemanly as possible, and Wilbur ends up breaking his back, and he ends up having to go to a hospital, which is literally in the back of an ambulance. Like literally the back of an ambulance.
The scene is so impressively silly, but also it's literally every child's perception of what a hospital is.
I've never actually looked at it like that before. It's
It has a doctor who is like an evil villain. Like, he gives off those kind of vibes. And then it's like all these scary devices that they're going to use on him.
Yeah.
Everyone he's terrified of. It is literally a child at a doctor's. It's like at one point he's like Wilbur's like, no, you're all right. I'm cured now. We're all good. I'm going to head home. And then it's like, I can't remember. It's like, give him double the dose. He's like, oh god.
I was like, they start off with 60 milligrams, and then he just what was like, I'm an American citizen, buddy. And I'm just, I was like, and the doctor, also voiced by Bernard Fox, by the way, make that double. Wait, hang on, double? That's 120 milligrams inside a freaking shotgun. And the shotgun has a scope on it as well.
Mm-hmm. It's great. Love that scene.
I mean, but like I said, I've never actually looked at it from that sort of perspective before. So I'm glad you actually brought that up. But I can only assume it's probably some sort of anesthesia that they're.
Yeah, like an anesthetic they're going to use to try
anesthetic. That's the word I was looking for. Some sort of anesthetic that they're going to be using on them. But I think that when they're Jake trying to work out Jake giving Bernard a couple of options as to where to go. I mean, places like Suicide Trail, Nightmare Canyon. Could they be any more on the nose with those sort of names?
All I say is, see the whole like using the word suicide in the Disney film, that caught me off guard.
Yeah, I think growing up, you don't really think of those sort of words. I mean, but of course, you know the word nightmare. You know about nightmare, yeah. But suicide at like 6-7 years old, and I'm sitting there, and then watching it now, you're just like, how did I not understand what that word actually means back then? I'd love
to see people try that in like today's society, where it's obviously such a big talking point. I don't think Disney would even go near calling something like that nowadays.
They wouldn't even think of using the word suicide,
No.
let alone actually discussing it in a Disney film.
What I will say is they used it in a context which they're the only one that really could get away with using it, and that is the whole point, that it's a place and not necessarily about someone.
Yeah, I say it's
very
probably the
reminiscent
safest
of
way they could have done it. It's probably the safest way they could have done it here.
Yeah, it's very, like I said, it's very reminiscent of like the Japanese suicide forest. Like, it's on the nose, but as long as they don't dwell on it, obviously, I think that's how they got around it.
Yeah, but
So it only comes up in it once in the film, if I remember right. You might remember that though, when says it? McClinch.
McLeach.
McClinch, that's it. I get that every time I talk about this, I get that wrong. McClinch says it once later on, but it's never dwelled on or anything. So I think that's the only reason it kind of it was all right at the time.
Yeah, but like I say, it's not the sort of thing they would even think of putting into a script for a Disney film in this day and age, especially.
Definitely not.
So let's see. Bear with me. Plot synopsis. I need to get the plot synopsis up. Yes, I've got IMDb tabs up as well.
To try and make sure you're saying right. Respectable.
Yeah. Whereabouts? That's some reason. Doesn't give me the full synopsis. Oh well, Wikipedia it is. Wikipedia it is, because at least there I know they actually have the full synopsis. There we go. That's what we're after.
What about say though, in this point in the film, we also start getting the kind of love triangles, kind of like you're saying, how he's taken kind of away by Bianca,
which is somewhat making Bernard a little bit. What could we say? Jealous, frustrated?
Yeah, jealous and a bit agitated with what he's doing, but it kind of doesn't go anywhere though, is my only complaint about it. Like, he doesn't really try that hard for her attention. Like, he kind of just takes the situation and kind of goes with it, but he never, like, after the scene we see, obviously, really likes her, but it doesn't really go anywhere. There's a couple of scenes with it, but he kind of, that's another thing I would criticise, is it isn't like he is actually fighting for this woman and loses. It's more like he's just there to annoy Bernard.
Yeah. Then we cut back to McLeach and Cody. See, McLeach trying to get the information out as to where Marahute and the eggs are. So, I think it was something past or Nightmare Canyon that McLeach says.
He says suicide.
It's because it's Suicide Trail.
Yeah. And then it's Crocodile.
Croc Falls. That's the other one.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the Nightmare one again. He talks about. He says the first same as the first two that was kind of mentioned earlier in the film, and then he has the third one, which is in the middle. But it's that's how you know he's quite an evil villain, because he has this child tied up in a cave and starts throwing knives at him.
Satan's Ridge. That's the other one. Satan's Ridge. That's the other one.
Which even in this film again, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, Satan. That's literally the name of the devil, Lucifer.
Let's not go to Australia.
especially with names like that. But of course, Cody just being very persistent. He is just refusing to give up the location of where the eggs are. So what does he decide to do? He decides to lock him inside a cage.
Yeah.
And then we've got
cool.
Yeah. Then we get the last batch of characters we get introduced to as far as voice actors are concerned. So we've got whereabouts are they? Yeah, you've got a kangaroo who's been kidnapped. It's Red's his name. You've got Peter Firth as the actor for him. Krebs, who's the koala, voiced by Douglas Seal, and then you've got Frank, voiced by Wayne Robson. And the fact that of those three, Frank's the only one that's got a supervising animator, and I'm just like, of all the characters you could have given a supervising animator to, you have a supervising animator do possibly the most annoying character of the entire film.
Well, I will say I agree with you there, but he's also one of the most complicatedly animated, I suppose is the best way to put it. Just due to the type of animal he is.
Which is probably one of the reasons why they got a supervising animator for that character.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense now you mention it. But yeah, like I say, that's the last of the characters. One character I did actually forget to mention is the nurse mouse that puts the anesthetics inside, again, a freaking shotgun. And it's not the last time we're going to be seeing something as terrifying as a shotgun being used in this film, especially inside that hospital. The nurse mouse is voiced by Russi Taylor, who at the time was also the voice of Minnie Mouse.
It's crazy.
I know. Yeah, and of course, regarding Minnie Mouse and her other half, Mickey, I'll get in again. Something else I'll get into in the legacy portion of the scores, because I did manage to finish getting the behind the scenes notes typed up earlier this afternoon before starting recording, because I'm recording this July 26th, where we've just finished day 3 of the Olympic Games. Great job from Team GB today. 5 medals. Today, 2 silver and 3 gold, one of them being for Tom Daley. Finally, Tom Daley can say he's an Olympic champion. So, but nevertheless, a massive congratulations to all the athletes so far that have won medals at the Olympic Games at time of recording. But I'm really looking forward to this week's Olympic action, especially because Friday, which will be the 30th, the athletics gets underway. Yes. And again, those who know me well know how much I love athletics. I do miss competing in athletics, though, but that's mainly down to the fact that I've got a couple of recurring injuries that I'm dealing with right now. So I'm currently on the sidelines at the moment. I'm gonna be starting physiotherapy tomorrow, finally. Albeit the first appointment is going to be over the phone, so we'll just take it from there. But anyway, back to the film. They try and work out how to get the keys to unlock the cage, albeit without much success, because Joanna actually ends up taking the keys for herself. Oh dear. And we just leave Frank to try and pick the lock with his tail. So we just leave him to do that for the time being, because then we end up cutting back to the hospital, and Wilbur's just like, feels like I've got my head in a vice. That's because your head is in a vice. And he's actually strapped to a heart rate monitor as well, which will be used for a very creative gag for this film, because you see all these tools going by, and you're just like, okay, and you actually see the heart rate starting to go up, and then and then for some reason the heart rate drops slightly because legitimately the epidermal what?
Oh, no.
And what do the mice decide to bring up? A freaking chainsaw! Are they trying to be Leatherface?
Do you know what we need to ask? We're asking the wrong question here. It's more, how is that going to help his store back?
Yeah, exactly! How's that all going to help?
Maybe they need to do surgery. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, but still, surgery, again, with a chainsaw! They have a chainsaw in the back of that ambulance for some reason!
They're resourceful.
Yeah, not in the way we were expecting, though. Then Wilbur tries to escape, but of course, with any escape sequence with this sort of thing coming into play, you always have to have the escapee at some point yell out, "You'll never take me alive!" And then it all climaxes, and you just hear this. You just hear the crack.
Yeah.
He just gets yeeted back in through the window. And lo and behold, that actually works and cures his back.
Some strong mice in there.
Yeah, very strong. But of course, that back pain ends up being transferred over to the doctor himself. Oh dear. But so now that that's out of the way, we get back to hang on, right. Let's get back to
I think that's a good point to mention that the actual story is quite confusing purely because there's really three perspectives listening.
Yeah.
And it constantly shifts between the three of them.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Wilbur's perspective, Bernard, Bianca, and Jake, and then of course you've got Cody.
Yeah. And it can be quite confusing trying to keep up with all because they do obviously meet up.
Yeah.
And then it becomes one kind of story, but the perspective changes is quite jarring, and I must admit I don't know if I like it in this film. It's just weird.
And of course, when it comes to doing something like this, you end up getting confused as to like, right, we were just here, and where do they which perspective did they go to next?
Yeah, because we know roughly where you are on the timeline, and again, it's one of those films I don't know super well compared to some other Disney films. Even though I watched it all as a kid, and it begs me to ask the question: would I have known better as a kid? Like, would I understand where the story was going? Especially if you just started watching and then you're jumping between different perspectives.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's the next perspective. That's the next perspective they go to. They end up cutting back to McLeach because he's going to be cooking. He's got this box of eggs, and he's going to be cooking those eggs for something to eat. But then you've got Joanna just munching away at just like open, tape, close, and she eats all the eggs. And it's at that point that McLeach works out that, yeah, that's the boy's weak spot, the eagle's eggs.
Which again, the whole point is he uses children. Because the eggs, even though they are unborn, are still children. And that's what he does. He essentially abuses kids to get what he wants.
Yeah. which is something we don't really see that often in today's Disney films, especially.
No. I don't think there's any other really that off the top of my head. I've not got any other examples of adults abusing the trust of kids or using kids to get what they want that often in Disney.
Yeah. So that being said, Frank manages to pick the lock. He manages to get out of the cage. He goes to get the keys, and then Joanna, boom, through the cat/dog flap, and just all manner of chaos ensues. And the keys, Cody ends up getting the keys to try and free the other animals. And by the way, folks, we don't get to see these guys again.
Yeah, I found that very strange. I was expecting to come back to them at the end and showing them being freed, but I think it's worth knowing they has all these animals like chained up by like the neck and the arms and cages and things. Got the kangaroo by the neck, and I thought that was very
exactly.
The villain.
Yeah. So now we've only got right now just two perspectives to focus on for the time being. So that does like ease the confusion somewhat. So we see Bernard, Bianca, and Jake outside McLeach's hideouts, and McLeach just throws the switchblade at Cody, and he lies to him. He lies to Cody and says Marahute is gone thanks to the fact that he shot her right out of the sky, and then goes onto this little monologue, which is a villain's greatest weakness, as with pretty much every villain ever, be it Disney, Fox, DreamWorks, Pixar, etc. And then he brings up the eagle eggs, and the fact that Cody actually runs off to the eggs. I mean, Cody.
What shocks me is Cody.
He's inadvertently given McLeach the location of where the eggs are.
I do think, and this plays to the cards of strength, that Cody is still a child and he doesn't understand. He is very naive, so he takes the poacher's word straight for it.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't even try and go and find the Rangers to get help first. And that's the other thing. Cody now knows where McLaren's lair is and doesn't seek help for it. Like, I think that's one of the biggest issues is what Cody does goes kind of against common sense, in a sense, because there's plenty of opportunities for him to get more help or seek, like, just not to give the villain what they want. And that's one of Cody's biggest weaknesses. But it also does, again, play into the fact he is just a kid. He doesn't understand entirely.
Yeah. But and then we see McLeach in this vehicle that we saw earlier towards the beginning of the film, and the mice they jump onto the vehicle. Jake manages to get onto solid ground, but Bernard and Bianca they end up on the tracks of the vehicle, and it is a very, very tense scene, and the music just helps add to that. Because there's one particular point where they're like right underneath the tracks, and you're thinking, "Oh no, they're gonna get squashed by the tracks."
This film does have a way of making it seem really intense, and that's very fun, though.
But thankfully, Jake, being as resourceful as ever, he manages to get Bernard and Bianca off those tracks, and they're safe underneath the vehicle for the time being. Cody then gets to the location of where the eggs are, and
he kind of covers the eggs like he was taught at the start of the film, and he kind of tries to take care of the eggs because he knows what it's like to lose a parent, I suppose. And this kind of falls back through where he knows that both their parents are now gone, so they're goners if not for him helping. And it is a really sweet scene where he goes in and he pushes like the straw over the eggs to try and kind of heat them up and protect them.
Yeah. Which again ties into the meaning of his character's name.
Yeah, he's a guardian. Yes, and I think he is throughout the whole film. He's a guardian for the animals in the outback.
Yeah. So McLeach and so McLeach reaches where the eggs are, and effectively sends Joanna down to eat them to ensure that in his words that bird stays rare.
Yeah, that's after he catches. He actually catches the great eagle, the golden eagle. And
there's a couple of bits before that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, he catches Cody. Basically, when Cody's at the eggs,
this is where he meets the mice for the first time, and this is about an hour into the film. This is like beginning of the third act, effectively.
Yeah, we've only got, I think, like 20 minutes left of the full film.
Only about 20 minutes of the film, and it's only now that Bernard and Bianca and Jake are meeting Cody for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't understand, because essentially they came to rescue Cody from being kidnapped, so I didn't expect to see them meet up so early on. What I didn't expect is, realistically, the mice did nothing to help Cody escape. As at this point.
That's a valid point, because Cody's more concerned about the fact. Yeah, because Cody's more concerned about the fact that he can actually hear Marahute, because being a kid, you instantly believe that Marahute is gone, but turns out Marahute is fine, and McLeach, top of the cliff, with this like rocket device that has a net in it, captures Marahute, and Cody jumps onto it, holding one of the ropes, and the rest of the mice. I say the rest of the mice. Jake manages to help Bianca, but Bernard ends up losing his grip, and Bernard is stuck with those eggs. So, and then they end up. Then Bianca, Jake, Cody, and Marahute are in this cage at the back of McLeach's vehicle, and this is where McLeach sends Joanna down to eat those eggs. And it turns out,
should mention, doesn't Joanna is very scared of heights at this point, and instead of giving her time to fix her, well, it throws her. We don't actually see it, but I'm assuming since he kicked her earlier on, he basically pushes her off the cliff, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's again tying into the abusive relationship that those two have. But then we have, and it turns out the eggs she's trying to eat, tries one of the eggs, and I say that in air quotes, breaks one of her teeth off. One ends up on top of her tail, and the other one just she's trying to scratch at it, and it ruins her claws. Because it turns out those eggs are actually stones or rocks, whichever way you want to put it.
I love the fact that she just decides to kick them off the cliff and then go back up. You see when she goes back up, she pure crosses her arms and like, haha, yeah, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that and I will not apologize for it. But Bernard, hats off to him for this. He actually managed to hide the actual eggs and managed to disguise them as the rocks that were used for the fake eggs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he also covers them with the grass again. I think after watching Cody do it, he must have done it knowing full well that that'll hide them properly.
Yeah. And then Bernard and Wilbur cross paths again, and then Wilbur ends up being somewhat forced to actually sit on the eggs as if he's their mother, which is it is just brilliant.
Yeah, it takes the initiative to sit on the eggs, and it's quite funny because all you see is the scene with him landing through the wee hole in the bush, and he's just like face full of his butt. It is an amazing scene.
Yeah. So, and that's the last, and that's the last we see of Wilbur until the end of the film.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say the film is good, but it really could have used an extra wee 20 minutes to just get like some resolutions done.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of end very abruptly, and I did notice that when we were watching it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's it. And then we get a callback to a line that Jake said earlier in the film, where Bernard gets on top of a razorback. I've got somewhere to go, and you're going to take me there, and you're not going to give me any trouble about it. That's a callback to what Jake said earlier in the film when he was trying to tame what looks like a water snake by the looks of it.
Yeah, and it's quite good because he chases after them, and this is the scene where you truly get to see how evil McLaren is, because as we're about to find out, he starts using Cody as essentially a live bait, which is, and he even says that, he says this is what you would call live bait, and has Cody over a water with crocodiles.
The crocodiles over them, yeah. Yeah. And he's just singing gleefully, and I'm just like, could this guy be any more evil? And yes, with it being in Australia, of course it has to be a traditional Australian song, and the song of choice, of course, Waltzing Matilda. Yeah. Now I don't even know the lyrics of Waltzing Matilda, but I just know it's from the research that I did. Is the song that he's singing at this point in the film is, of course, Waltzing Matilda. But there's one point where Joanna is chasing Bernard, and Bernard actually leads Joanna all the way to McLeach, who's got his shotgun with scope, shooting at the rope that's holding Cody in place.
Oh my gosh!
This is just after these
I hope I know what I'm doing.
Times to get the crocodile attention. But I mean, it is actually quite like it shows you how far he'll go. Because at this point, I think it needs to be said that he has what he wants. Essentially, he has the eagle.
Yeah.
He thinks things are gone. Like there's no need to do any of this. This is just him being evil. There's no other reason for him to want to kill Cody.
Exactly. Yeah, but then Joanna ends up running into McLeach, and very impressive balance skills from McLeach, though. Ben and Bernard just like gentle push, and they go wee into the water, and it's at this point that the crocodiles start to go after them rather than Cody, because Cody's rope it ends up snapping, and he ends up like sinking into the water. But Bernard managing to get him back up to the surface and keep him on the keep him like secured in place with a tree branch, and while all that's happening, you've got Jake and Bianca with the keys to like unlock the cage, and McLeach manages to fight off the crocodiles, and he's just you'll think twice before you mess with Percival C. McLeach, and then you've just got Joanna just like bye bye, and it's at that point that McLeach looks back behind him and he realizes I'm about to go over a waterfall.
Yep.
And
you know what?
I say it is terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying with how tall that waterfall is. Yeah, nobody is surviving that fall. But then Jake and Bianca, they managed to unlock the cage. They managed to get Marahute out. The tree branch breaks, and Cody and Bernard are about to go over the waterfall as well. But Marahute, with the speed that she's got, manages to save them both, and they soar above the clouds into the night sky.
The most beautiful thing in the film has to be this one.
Yeah.
And it's when you see the stars all in the sky as they're above the clouds. It is a stunning piece of art.
It is another fantastic shot. And Bernard finally manages to propose to Bianca, and Jake congratulates him, and Cody just says, "Let's all go home." And then Wilbur, still on those eggs, bear in mind, those eggs start to hatch. He starts playing with the eagle babies, and then his back cracks again, and that's the end of the film.
It ends so abruptly. One of the biggest criticisms I can have of the film is you don't get to see any of the cast really see the kind of minor cast.
Yeah.
Especially the ones in McLaren's Lair. You don't get to see the resolution for any of them.
Yeah,
I feel like
you don't really get any closure for them.
I found that very, very hard to understand why they would cut that. And I'm sure it was a budgeting issue or a time issue, but it was very evident that scene was missing.
Yeah, because believe it or not, this is actually the shortest film of the Renaissance period at just 1 hour 17 minutes. This is the shortest film of the Renaissance period, because the rest of them you're probably looking at somewhere in the region of like 80 to 90 minutes easily, maybe just a little bit over that.
But even 80 minutes isn't the longest. But see if they just made it that 90 minutes, I think it would have really helped the film.
Yeah. So, last thing to do now is, of course, the scores. Despite all the shortcomings with the story that we've mentioned, I did give the story a 10 because despite the shortcomings with what we've brought up, this is still a fantastic story throughout the film. The characters I gave a 9, mainly because of how annoying Frank is, and that's about it. But I will say he is nowhere near as annoying as Gurgi in The Black Cauldron.
How dare you?
Yes, I went there, and I will not apologize for it. was like visuals. Visuals I gave an 11. Mainly for the cap system, and of course the shots that we did bring up throughout the episode.
One of the film's strong points for sure is that the stunning visuals they have.
Absolutely, yeah. Was like soundtrack I gave a 9. Now don't get me wrong, like I said, it's a fantastic score, but I just feel that the theme of the theme of the film was recycled a bit too much throughout the score. Now, like I said, there are like variations of the theme, the theme's motif throughout the film. But when you actually hear the theme itself throughout the score, it still feels like it's been. It just feels like the theme was recycled quite a fair amount throughout the film.
A bit too much, I would have to agree.
Yeah, but like I said, apart from that, it's a great score regardless. Now the legacy. Right, so let's see what we have regarding the legacy. I've got some of the legacy in I've got some of the legacy things in my notes as well. There were, like I said, there were plans for a third film, like to create a trilogy films effectively, but Eva Gabor had passed away, sadly, and of course the poor reception, not just critically but also at the box office as well, didn't exactly help matters either. There was a Mickey Mouse short, because I mentioned the voice of Minnie Mouse earlier. There was a Mickey Mouse short, The Prince and the Pauper, marking the first time that Mickey Mouse was on the big screen in 7 years, because of course we saw him in an animated short, which was a rendition, which was Disney's take on Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, known as Mickey's Christmas Carol. I'll say The Prince and the Pauper. It's a fantastic short. I really like the short myself. This was actually released alongside The Rescuers Down Under, and it would be the last film to have a short that was over 20 minutes. That would be over the 20-minute mark until Coco in 2017. And of course, they were, out of all the films they could have chosen, of course they have a short from Frozen. I have plenty of bones to pick regarding Frozen.
Pretty sure you said that last time we filmed as well.
Yeah, but don't worry, folks. I'll get to Frozen eventually. I'm just going to be doing the Pixar films for the time being once I get Tarzan out of the way. But let's see, the short, the Frozen shorts that was used. It was Olaf's Frozen Adventure. That was the short that was released alongside Coco in 2017. There was also another Frozen short that was released in 2015, Frozen Fever. That was to coincide with the release of the live-action remake of Cinderella. Don't worry, I'll get to the live-action remakes as well as some of the live-action films like Homeward Bound, George of the Jungle, which Michael has insisted that I have him on board for regarding that.
Forget one. Haunted Mansion.
That was 2003 with Eddie Murphy, right?
Yeah.
I'll be sure to do that one as well, because I've only seen that one like once or twice.
I can help you. That one has a lot of things for the ride. You really have to put on it.
I was about to say the Haunted Mansion is actually based on the ride of the same name. but of course, the two final things I need to go through here, if I can find it. Connection center, user reviews, yada yada yada. There we go. That's what we're after. A $30 million budget, and it only grossed just under $28 million worldwide. The fact it was released on the same day as Home Alone didn't exactly help matters, which also starred John Candy, and a lot of people would have rather gone to see Home Alone than they did with Rescuers Down Under. The fact with how poorly the Rescuers Down Under did on opening weekend, Jeffrey Katzenberg being starting to turn into a Disney villain at this point, he pulled all advertising for the film. He pulled all advertising for Rescuers Down Under, which didn't exactly help matters either.
It also continues into nowadays as well, because if you look at Disney and Disney Plus and even Disney World, when I was there isn't a lot of presence of this film in the parks at all, really.
Yeah, not really much regarding the Rescuers, which is a real shame, because like I've said a couple of times throughout this episode, this film is amazing, and this is what the first film should have been. Rotten Tomatoes reception, once it decides to load, it's not too bad, but it is fairly mixed. 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score 68%, so definitely a lot lower than previous Disney films that I've covered, and it would be probably, I think, the lowest scoring film of the Disney Renaissance period, which I might be wrong on that one.
But it's still arguable. It's still above average.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the general consensus from the critics is, though the story is second-rate, Rescuers Down Under redeems itself with some remarkable production values, particularly its flight scenes, which again I did mention briefly when it came to the fact that the flight scenes were inspired by Hayao Miyazaki films.
I mean, they are the standout points of the film.
Right. So, there we go. This will definitely help me once it decides to load, because I've just managed to find something on Rotten Tomatoes that actually has all the Disney films ranked based on what they've got on the tomato meter. So let's see if I can find it. Sword and Stone, Fun and Fancy Free, Meet the Robinsons. Okay, right. Rescuers Down Under.
Oh God!
It is just Hunchback of Notre Dame. Just beat it with 71%. Ouch.
Yeah, ouch.
Hercules 84%, Mulan 86, 89 for Tarzan, 93 for Little Mermaid, same with The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast 94%, Aladdin 95%.
I must admit, if you do compare it to some of the newer films as well, like, it does show its age. It's still worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, but so from there it is. So yeah, Rescuers Down Under is the lowest ranked. It is the lowest scoring film on Rotten Tomatoes from the Renaissance period. And Hunchback of Notre Dame didn't do much better with the critics at 71%. I mean, come on, Hunchback of Notre Dame is, again, it is an incredible film. It is, for me, one of the best film soundtracks of the Renaissance period.
Very underrated.
Yeah, I say both Rescuers and Hunchback, criminally underrated. But that being said, this film did get, for me, an overall score of 94%, which is still a very respectable score. It is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is tied for 7th place at the moment with Pinocchio, so it is inside the top 10 at the moment. But I wouldn't be too surprised when you've got Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King as the next 3 episodes. I don't think Down Under's going to stay in the top 10 for much longer.
No, I can't imagine that it's going to.
Yeah, because I will say, like I said, Rescuers, let's say Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King. Beauty, Beast, and Lion King especially are probably the 2 most realistic contenders to get that elusive 110%. Because I've only had one film at the moment go beyond 100%, and that was way back with Sleeping Beauty in 1959. That's the only film at the moment. That's the only I'm not going to say what the Little Mermaid does, because at time of recording, I haven't actually recorded that episode yet. But me and Jack are going to get that episode recorded next week. But of course, The Little Mermaid will be the first episode that goes up, and then from there it will just be, and then from once Little Mermaid is out of the way. I've only got 4 episodes left to record. Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Lion King, and Pocahontas. Those are the only episodes I've got left to record, and then I'm just going to spend the next couple of weeks just editing them all together and getting the soundtracks for those films into play for those episodes, because realistically I can't play the songs because of copyright. The film scores I should be able to get away with. I might get copyright claims, but I'm definitely not going to get copyright striked unless I end up doing appeals, and then the copyright strike, and it ends up affecting my channel. But anyway, the next episode that's going to go live is going to be, of course, Beauty and the Beast. But yeah, Jack, thanks very much for joining me for this episode. It's gonna be the last traditional Disney film that we cover together for a while, because like I've said before, once we get Tarzan up on my channel, we're going to start doing the Pixar films. I mean, what I might actually do is I'll need to get the episodes recorded over a certain time span, and then once I've got them all edited, you'll get a whole week of Pixar films in the Kingdom of Isolation. Toy Story, Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles, and Cars. 7 Pixar films over the course of that week, and then it's back, and then it'll be back to Disney to do Fantasia 2000. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the thumbs up. And if you want to be part of the Kingdom of Isolation yourself, you can hit the subscribe button down at the bottom and click the bell to join the Dream Chasers notification squad so you don't miss anything that we do on this channel. Like I said, next episode's gonna be Beauty and the Beast, and this one is very significant in a lot of ways. So there's going to be a lot to talk about with that one. But until then, we will see you guys next time in Kingdom of Isolation.